Badger fans, let's celebrate. It is game week. Tomorrow we got Rutgers. It's Friday. The work week's done. Cheers to a Badgers victory. On Wisconsin, let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Appreciate every single person for tuning in, as always, for joining the show. This is the Live Friday show, so you can call in, you can talk in the comments. I think we'll have a couple people joining at some point. I kind of like to think of this as like open bar hour, right? Fridays, you can come in at a certain point, you can roll out at a certain point, you can leave whenever, join whenever. It's all good. We're just Badger fans having kind of a virtual beer before the game. And that's kind of how I like to think about it. My biggest thing with this game, it's super important. And again, I think we have a couple of people jumping on. I'm trying to square away in my head, because I've talked about it before. I lean optimist. That's kind of my natural proclivity. I'm mispronouncing that word. My goodness. But that's my natural inclination, is to lean a little positive. And I feel like a lot of people I really respect, who I know watch a lot of ball, who really watch this team and who go back and watch film of who we're going to play, they think we're going to kind of roll Rutgers. And I'm not really sure why I can't get on board with that. Like, I think Wisconsin can win. I think Wisconsin actually will win. But I think it's going to be like a close, tough, hard-fought game. And there's a lot of guys and fans and people who think we're going to kind of take it to them. I'm very curious if that's a misnomer or if that's like indicative of how Badger fans feel. Like, how do you feel about this game? Are you pretty confident after the Purdue game? Are you still in wait-and-see mode? Or are you still thinking this team has major flaws and Rutgers is going to exploit them? I just did a poll the other day on Twitter or on our YouTube channel. About 70% of Badger fans think Wisconsin wins this game. Nationally, that is not the case. Looking at national predictions, College Football News, ESPN, Rutgers beat writers, nationally, most people think Rutgers wins this. I'm very curious on just the optimism for Badger fans. And for the record, I love it. I'm here for it. I think we win too. Let's get our first caller in. We got Brian in the queue here. Brian, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Good, man. Like, what's your feel on this weekend?
I mean, I'm optimistic we'll win, but I think it's going to be, I'm more along the line, it's going to be a slog. I'm kind of in wait and see mode with this team in terms of, we haven't put together, when was the last time we put together a full 4 quarters of football?
Agree.
You know, so until I see that consistency, I just can't quite get there right now as far as, and normally as a fan, I'm closer to like a believe with Rajiv type guy. You know, they play good for a quarter. I'm like, we're going all the way. But right now it's just been after the last couple of years. I think we are a better team. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't just put it together again. So I think we win, but I'm not super optimistic.
Yeah, I feel like I'm right there with you. And you hit it. I think you made a great point. I said something similar. I don't know when they played 60 good minutes. And until they do that, I don't know why should we believe they will?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I'm optimistic. I think Locke has been showing steps, you know, through each game. You know, you even go back to like Alabama. How many plays did he have where you're like, he was there for like 10 seconds holding the ball and you're like, get rid of it. You know, he's gotten rid of that. He's been hitting guys. He seemed to be finding open guys. I like the fact that some of the young guys seem to be stepping up, but again, until that all comes together over the course of a whole game, I think we're going to struggle a bit, even if we do win.
Hey, let me ask you this: who, outside of maybe Braedyn Locke, who's the key, or what's something that is going to help decide this game? Because obviously Braedyn Locke, the quarterback, plays a huge part in that. What's another part of this game you're looking at?
I think the line has been playing really good. I'd love to see them step up and just truly start to become dominant. I think part of it's on the coaching too. I think we got to call a good game. I think that's part of it. The problem is there's no flow. I just don't feel like there's ever been a good flow to the way the game is called. You know, it's not like we never seem to set anything up. You know, it's not like, oh, we ran this play a couple of times going to the right, and now we see that we got it open to the other side of the field or anything like that. You know, we pounded the ball 3 or 4 times, so now we can go play action. So I think Longo has to call a good game on the coaching side. there. And, and honestly, I would love to see Yakimelli get a few more touches. I'm 100% with you on that. It looks like he's going to be the spot guy, the third guy behind Walker and Dupree. But I'm with you. I think he's got that burst that I want to see him touch the ball a few more times. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to see on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, Yak is interesting, man. If anybody was watching 49ers Seahawks the other night, they saw Isaac Guerrero take a run about 70 yards, former Badgers running back. I think they're kind of similar. I think they have a burst. I don't think either are great necessarily with vision, but at some point, none of that matters if they're statistically productive. Just keep giving the guy who's producing the most. You said you think the Badgers win a close game here. Do you have a score prediction? And what worries you the most in this game?
I guess for a score prediction, I'm going to go about, I guess I'm seeing a bit of a grinding game. So I'm going to go I think the Badgers win maybe 17-14.
Okay.
And I guess what worries me, I don't know, Rutgers doesn't worry me nearly as much as us just not playing well, making the dumb mistakes, not putting it together. So I guess maybe that's what worries me the most is just that we don't beat ourselves. We don't muff any punts. We don't. I think a big thing, because I do expect to be a grinded out game. You can't be the team that makes the more mistakes. So I guess that's just not shooting ourselves in the foot. I think is probably what worries me the most.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring Rajiv on too, but Brian, I'm gonna keep you on here for a second. Get us. Let's see Rajiv on. I think that's a great point, because that's kind of something I've said as well. And Rajiv, welcome as always, man. As I'm throwing up comments randomly, trying to click into a different screen. I think that's a great point, Brian. And Rajiv, I don't know if you heard it. I don't think Rutgers is a great team necessarily, but I'm worried about our ability to play a clean 60 minutes of football.
Could not agree more. That's exactly we've only played one really good game. That's fair, right? We played a half against USC. So my view is Rutgers and Wisconsin are on a very similar level. The team that plays better is going to win. If we play poorly and they play well, they win. If they play poorly and we play well, we win. And we could blow them out, but we could also lose. So I just feel like it's going to be about execution. It's going to be about who's really going to play well. And yeah, I mean, I hope we can take what we did in the Purdue game and extrapolate that now, but I need to see it again. And then I'm all about, I think we're going to win for sure. I just don't think it's a blowout like a lot of people think it is.
And Brian, feel free to jump if you got to jump, but I'm going to keep you on for a couple more minutes if you have a couple more minutes.
I'm not going anywhere.
Rajiv, I'm super curious on this while I got you on, because this is a show, and JB on the Discord would let everybody know this is a show of receipts. We keep receipts on this show in a very kind way. Before the season, you had picked Wisconsin to lose to Rutgers.
Yes, I did.
And Wisconsin has probably demonstratively played worse than you had expected this year.
Yeah. And
now you have Wisconsin beating Rutgers. Why is everybody so confident in this game suddenly, including yourself, who is at least more confident than you were before the season?
Totally. So first of all, before the season, I definitely feel like, okay, so Rutgers also is not playing nearly as well as I thought they were going to play. That's the primary reason that I don't feel like it's a guaranteed win for them anymore. I always knew that, when I said before the season, we were going to lose a game that we were favored in. I expected to be favored in this game, which we're not. And that's kind of what whether it was Rutgers, whether it was, one of the other ones like Purdue or Indiana or whatever, not Indiana, but Northwestern, we were going to lose one of those games. And this was the one I identified that we were going to lose. That being said, Ethan Kaliak-Manis has not looked great. Their secondary has looked good. Their running defense hasn't looked good. And I just feel like I did see enough last week that we can grow from that. And I ultimately believe that another reason, our offensive line is better than I thought it was at the beginning of the season. I really think we can run the ball on them. And that's the reason that I'm picking that. And their kicker has not been very good. Jay Patel, the fellow Indian guy. That's great, but not the best kicker. I think that's going to play a big role in this game. It could be a late situation where all of a sudden, we have a little more confidence in our kicker. They don't. All those things factored into me now saying it's a close win for us.
No, that's really well said. Really, really well said. And you're right. Rutgers, I think defensively hasn't played quite as well in the front that we thought. I actually think Kaliak-Manis, my goodness, has been what you expected him to be. which is a little better than Gavin Wimsatt last year, but not a great quarterback. He's kind of who I thought he would be. Note a whale down there. Brian, last question here before I let you go, and I apologize, I already kept you like 8 minutes, but big picture, and Rajiv, I'm going to kick this to you too. Wisconsin wins this game. They look good against Rutgers. How much has your perspective changed from where it was 2 weeks ago?
Probably, it's hard to say because I mean, overall, we're probably going to be about where preseason I thought where we would be, but the road getting there has been so weird because we've looked so bad to start the season, so much worse than what I thought. You know, if we win and look really good tomorrow, maybe it all averages out, and I think we're kind of about where I thought we'd be, which was about a 7-8 win team. That we've gotten back on track for that. If we come out tomorrow and look, kind of like how we did in those first couple of games, and just even if we eke out a win, I might still think we're about a 6-win team. So I just keep coming back to them. It's hard for me to feel confident about any predictions with this team right now. Yeah. Because I feel like the guys I was expecting to play big parts have not been showing up, Malusi's off the team, and I was with you guys in terms of, I thought he'd be a fairly solid back for us this year, so things like that have happened, but now the younger guys seem to be stepping up, but it's like, are they going to actually be able to be consistent? So I feel like I have very little handle on where this team really is right now. And that's probably the biggest thing I'm looking for. One of the things I'm looking for tomorrow, besides just this game in itself, is just what exactly are we looking at going forward and what can we take from this game? And I think, that's a big thing after Purdue is just stringing together, talked about a complete game. Well, 2 good games in a row would also be a big thing. Last year, a couple of times it looked like we looked solid against Ohio State, and then, maybe we're going to put it together, and we turn around and lose to Indiana. So that'd be another thing, is not just putting together 60 minutes tomorrow, but stringing together a series of good games would be a huge step after the last couple of years. So that's just kind of my long-winded, rambling way of saying I don't feel confident in any predictions long term for the rest of the season, but I think if we win well, I'm going to feel a lot better than if we play well, I'll feel a lot better than I would 2 weeks ago.
Well, and Brian, I totally agree with you, Brian. I think that it's also building that, we want to be better. We want to be playing our best football at the end of the season, right? Yeah. So we need to be we obviously didn't look good those first couple of weeks, and that part of this win is that building, right? We've got to keep building to get better, so that, because we all know what part of our schedule is coming up, and I sure would like to steal one of those tough games. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I'll tell you what, man. For me, if this win happens, boy, oh boy, I'm going to be pumped. I'm going to be ready to count up all these wins. It's going to be great.
Hey, Brian, I'm going to let you go, brother. Okay. Curtis up in the queue too, and I think we have another person joining in a sec. But great stuff, man, as always. I appreciate you, brother.
Yep, thanks.
All right, that's Brian. And as always, love getting Brian on the show. Let's bring Curtis in here for a perfect time with this question.
What's going on?
I've been waiting to talk to Curtis all week about this.
I'm gonna cue this question up from Tyler. Who's more positive, Rajiv or Curtis? After hearing Playmaker this week, which is the Discord name for Curtis, I think he's given Rajiv a run for his money. And Rajiv is, as I've said, is the Oppenheimer of optimism here. He is. But I'm actually more with Rajiv in this. I don't think this is going to be an easy game at all. And Curtis, I'm not putting words in your mouth here, but you think this Wisconsin is at least in a position to win 35-10, 35-17?
Yeah. I don't know if Rajiv wants to answer who's optimistic. I think we're both optimistic for different things. For example, I know you had mentioned multiple times already, Rajiv, that you're thinking Penn State is a game that you think we can really snag that one. I'm significantly less optimistic for that game. But this game, I'm very optimistic just because it comes back to what are our teams, right? So I'm watching Maryland right now get its butt kicked by Northwestern. Okay?
Shocking, by the way.
Which is it's not shocking because Maryland has never been good. Neither has Rutgers. And when I say that, what I mean is when you look at the actual team talent on those rosters, Maryland's actually got some good talent from a skill position perspective. But on the lines of scrimmage, they have never been good. A lot of people jumped on the bandwagon in the offseason saying things like, well, Maryland and Rutgers, they're not going to be in a tough division anymore. They're not going to have to play Michigan and Penn State and Ohio State. So they're probably going to be good. Well, newsflash, they were never good. Maryland was never good. We beat them by 50 regularly. Iowa beat them by 50 2 years ago, right? You look at Rutgers, it's the same thing. They don't have the line of scrimmage talent needed to compete at a high level. Now Rutgers is finally starting to build it a little bit more. They're finally starting to get to a traditional Big Ten level at the line of scrimmage. But in terms of the rest of that team, it's nowhere near the talent composite that some of the top teams have, right? And so when you watch this team play at Virginia Tech, when you watch them play at Washington, you see that they're not fast. You see where they lack the athleticism. They're a physical team. We've been a physical team before. But when you play an athletic team, you struggle. Where Rutgers struggled a lot against Washington, where they struggled a lot against Virginia Tech, is when they got spread out and they couldn't tackle in space. It's exactly like what we were last year with our defense. When we talked about, hey, we need to get more athletic. We're playing in space now. We're struggling to make reads in the open field. We're struggling to make tackles in the open field. That's where Rutgers is right now. If we were to line up like Nebraska and run straight at them, or like old Wisconsin, yeah, they would be difficult to deal with, because that's what they're built to play. That's what they're built to stop. They're not built to stop us. They're not built to stop Washington, right? And so that's where I look at this game. There's a lot of opportunity for us to exploit the issues that Rutgers has, and they can't necessarily replicate that. So if we're to get up, if we score points, that puts a ridiculous amount of pressure on their offense to perform at a level it's not accustomed to doing so against a defense that's already been tested by the likes of Ryan Williams. It's been tested by the likes of oh my gosh, I can never remember the USC wide receiver's name. That's really good.
Branch.
Well, the Branch. We actually did a pretty good job against him.
The 6'4" guy.
Not Deuce Robinson. Whatever. Either way, all three of those guys are better than anything Rutgers can throw at us, right? Like, I think about, like, there was one Rutgers commenter that was saying something like, this is a get-right game for them. In what way can they threaten us that a Bama or USC could threaten us? They have nothing that can do that.
Well, let me kick into Rajiv for a second, because I think they can. Well, I think Rajiv just did a good crossover with the Rutgers guy, too. How does he think they can threaten us? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, they're more focused on the run game, just like we are. They realize that they can attack our defensive line. And so, first of all, Curtis, I agree with you that, like, Rutgers is not absolutely great comment, Daltrey. I agree that Rutgers is not built for long-term success. I'm more talking about right now. I don't think we are at the moment either. That's just the reality of where this team has been so far this year. I do not think we're going to beat Penn State. I just think that if we go 2-0 the next 2 weeks, I'm going to damn predict it. That's for sure. I'm all about that. I think that, like, my issue is this: like, we don't have the trenches right now either. We have it on the offensive line, but our defensive line is nowhere near the defensive lines that we're used to. So when I think about Rutgers historically and Wisconsin historically, I don't feel like we're just that much better than them. Yes, we are historically, but right now in this moment, we have thoroughly beaten one team. We struggled against Western Michigan and South Dakota. Now things grow. We've grown. I totally understand that. There's also a part of me that's look at the eye test of it and just me being a cautious fan, thinking that I want so badly for us to win these next 2 games because it puts us in such a good position for the season. I'm like, is this really going to happen? I mean, we've talked about how many times have we said, where's Luke Fickell's signature win? Doesn't really exist. He doesn't have like a true signature win. I'm not saying this is going to be it. I'm just saying every time we've been in a really good situation to do something strong, we haven't been able to do it. So I do doubt us a little bit. By the way, I still think we're going to win. Rutgers can run the ball. I know that you disagree on Monangai. I think Monangai is really good. I think
Monangai had 16 yards against an objectively worse Wisconsin defense last year.
Well,
yeah, that was his worst run total all season.
And they have a lot of different players on their team too. It's not just a one-man show with Monangai. It's their offensive line. That's not exactly the same as last year. Like they
lost one of their starters.
Yeah, they did.
So that's part of it.
They
returned there. So part of the reason why the Rutgers hype existed in the first place is because they returned a lot of people, specifically their offensive line. I think they returned pretty much every starter on that offensive line. And that's not a bad offensive line by any means. But again, we shut them down last year with an objectively worse Wisconsin. I mean, I would argue that our defense last year was worse than our defense this year. I don't know if you guys would concur to that.
I think James Thompson Jr. not being on the line makes a difference for the defensive line. I think the defensive line itself, like, yes, I believe but we have better linebackers. I just think that, like, last year, I'm not a big fan of like just looking at last year and this year because things change, efforts change, and so many things have changed since last year to this year.
I agree with that 100%. But my point is,
we ultimately have not looked like, when have we really stopped someone's rushing attack completely? Like, it's not, we have a bend but don't break.
My argument goes, I hear you. I think for me is, my argument is, I don't think we're going to 100% shut down the rushing attack. I've never said that. What I think is, I don't think it's going to matter, because if we stop them once, twice, and then we're able to score once, twice, now it takes them out their game plan. That's what happened last week. They got down 7, and I don't know if it was you talking to the Rutgers guy or a different Rutgers interview I was watching, but like they got down by 7 and immediately just went away from the run. And the Rutgers guy was like, I have no idea what was going on. I don't know why we did that. It made no sense.
That was a horrible
right?
coaching. She had bad move last
Coaching.
year.
But guess what? This is endemic of Schiano. He does this all the time. Like, he's always done this. They got down against us and they stopped trying to run the ball last year, right? I don't know why. Mununga had 8 carries for 16 yards against us. In what world does that make any sense?
Well, they won't give me 8 carries this
What was
year.
happening?
They're not.
Yeah.
Like,
Let's
know,
get
so,
we're
like,
gonna win. I actually legitimately think we're gonna win. I just don't think it's like 35-10 to me is like bananas. If it happens, I'll be all.
There's a lot of I will say this caveat to that. There's a lot of things that have to happen for that to happen. For example, we need to build off of
everything goes right.
last week and things like that.
The most obvious, like to me, the most likely scenario is a close win for the Badgers. It's my opinion, but like 35-10, man, I just can't see that happening on the road. I can't see it.
Let's kick this to Justin for a sec.
I guess I'm splitting the difference.
Good. Here's the premise. So here's the thing. Everybody on this panel likes to talk, and they have great opinions. But let's get Justin in. No, we all do. Let's get Justin in. And the premise is kind of, Justin, we talking about like, why are people so confident? Should we be so confident? I know you're somebody who doesn't think very highly of Rutgers.
Oh, I absolutely don't. I just think that they're very one-dimensional. I think if you have any semblance of a pass defense, that you can shut down Kaliak Manis, and I think that that's a big deal. Like, if they're going to sit there and try to nickel and dime it, they're not a team that's efficient enough to be able to do that in order to score. And actually, I think that this is why I feel very confident about this game. I just think we're going to make them work it down the field. Every team that Wisconsin has played, bar Alabama, has had to earn it against Wisconsin's defense. I don't think that Rutgers is capable of that. I just don't see them being able to sit there and be like, we need to piece together 12 play drives in order to score on Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's offense, I just look at this from a talent perspective. We can dislike what Wisconsin has shown. I think we'd all agree that they've underplayed the talent level. Like, we may not hit Purdue in terms of what our talent level is in this game, but I think that we would agree the first 2 games of the season, we absolutely underperformed. We did not play to our talent level. You can argue Alabama was just a poo show. I'm not going to drop the S-bomb on you.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. But that game, the second that TVD went down, everything was out the window. Like, it just you just don't have players locked in the same way when you lose a player that you're counting on heavily for your game plan. And then USC, they played really great for a half. I don't know about anybody else. I thought that the second half was going to be problematic simply because of the way we were scoring in the first half. We scored way too quickly. We allowed them to have a huge time.
You're talking about USC?
Yes.
Yeah.
They had a huge time of possession advantage in that game. And I said it after we scored the first 2 touchdowns, run the football. The defense needs a break. And they didn't do it. And it absolutely crushed us in the second half when we were worn down and they just weren't ready for it when we finally stumbled a little bit offensively, because the 3-play drives just, you can't afford to have that when you have an offense like that, unless your defense is really good and really deep. And we're not. Rutgers does not take advantage of you as a defense in the same ways that most teams do. They don't really have anyone that I look at it as wide receiver threat that I'm like, this guy's going to be a problem for us to be able to handle. Their tight end's not a guy who can really exploit you. They're going to have to rely on the run game in order to gash us. And it's possible it happens, but that's a lot of pressure on that running game to play really well in order for them to have a good game.
Mm-hmm.
I think Wisconsin can get you in either case. I don't think Locke's going to have a game where he goes over 350 yards like he did last week, but I do think he can go out there and have a game where he gets 220 to 250, like I've said before, and a couple of scores.
And above 50% completions.
Yeah. I think he'll be 55, 50, 60. I don't think he's going to be as good as he was last week, but if he's in that range and we run somewhat effectively and get a score that way, if you average 4 yards a carry, get 130 yards rushing with a score, and he can get a couple of scores, I think if we get into the mid-20s, I just don't see Rutgers being able to score that much against us.
Did you see Dylan Raiola's numbers against them last week? They're pathetic.
Dylan Raiola is not
He was
good.
a true freshman quarterback.
Dylan Raiola is
saying
not the
this
comp.
I'm
Watching
not
it, so
saying
watch him in the
it's like-
second half. That dude was actively trying to throw the game. I don't know what the hell he was doing. He was throwing at triple coverage. He was throwing out of
It's not
bounds.
just that.
He-
I watched
he
him
was
when he
not-
got under pressure.
He was
against
not. I don't know what he
Illinois.
was. That wasn't Rutgers.
In
That was
overtime against Illinois, he looked like he had no concept of what a football was anymore.
That was not Rutgers. That was 100% him.
One quarterback, and you pointed out in the Discord yesterday, one quarterback has thrown over 5 yards per attempt against Rutgers. I'm not, their secondary is the strength of their defense.
I'm
like,
not saying,
I
we're
sound
not
like the
winning this
Patriots.
game
I'm
by
not-
going out there trying to pass the football on them.
I just don't, I'm not saying that, like we're going to lose. I just feel like this is not going to be a Purdue. This is just not. I just don't see that. It's not Purdue. It's just not even close
So-
to that.
You realize
Kind of more.
Purdue
Oh
had
my
under
gosh!
46
Northwestern
pass
just hit a
defense
bomb. Jeez.
prior to us,
Sorry.
right?
Why, Justin?
Like Purdue was not a bad pass defense.
Well, partially because nobody threw on them. Like people just ran on them. Purdue did have a
And
bunch of
also, in full disclosure, too, they did lose a cornerback last week before they
They
played
did.
us. Mhm.
But that, I mean,
So-
he wasn't going to be a slot corner either way, and that's where we made most of our bones in that game. But the point I'm making with that is Wisconsin's not going to come into this game and be like, listen, we had 360 yards passing last week. Let's go into this game and just try to pass it down their throat. Like they're going to lean on the run game.
And they
They
should.
probably will pass as that opens up.
Mhm.
And I don't think that Rutgers is good enough that if you're able to run on them, that they're going to be able to stop both. Like they're just not going to be able to take risks and take away your run game and still be able to cover on the back end.
Well, let me throw this question around because it dovetails right into what Justin is saying. It dovetails into, is Locke good enough to take advantage of that? A couple questions. Will Hanna says Locke has to play well or they lose. He had a comment up earlier that said Locke has to be the guy that takes a step from last week. Can he do it, or was it Purdue? Let's try to keep the answers a tick quicker because we got 4 people. But like, is the Locke thing a little overblown coming off of Purdue? Where I mean, we had a conversation today in the Discord. Is Locke better than Tolzien? And we shouldn't even be to your point, Curtis. We shouldn't even be discussing that at this point, but it's being discussed.
Well, I didn't. First of all, I never started that. Full disclosure, I didn't start
He's
that
not.
conversation.
I just
I didn't say that. I don't know
no.
who. I don't know how it got started. I just had to troll.
My
a little
point
bit.
is, the bigger point is like, is the Locke hype? I hate using the word hype, but is the Locke optimism maybe being overblown a little bit? What do you expect from him this week? We'll just go clockwise, Justin.
Yeah, I think I've said flat out that I don't expect him to have the numbers that he had last week, and I just don't think that matters. Like there's a way Wisconsin can win this game with him having 150 yards passing. I just think we have the better. Like I trust our running game and our offensive line more than I trust their offensive line and running game against us, because I think that there's a talent gap still there. I don't like.
There's also a depth
As
gap.
much
to
as
add
we
to your
don't
point.
love what our defenses look like this season, it has not been bad. Rutgers' rush defense has been arguably bad in this so far this season, and they haven't played like a bunch of dominant run teams.
Yeah.
Washington is not a dominant run team. Nebraska is not a dominant run team. If you look at it, and this is something that I heard earlier today, I was listening to the camp. Every team but what was it, Akron, had over 6 yards of carry against them. Like that tells you all you need to know kind of about them a little bit. Like they can be had. And it's up to our offensive line to play like they've played all season, which is it doesn't matter who's across from us. We have to be effective.
Totally agree. Our offensive line is going to be the one to carry us. And I agree with Justin in that he can have I don't expect him to have much better than a 50 to 55% completion percentage, which is pretty much what he's averaged his whole career. I expect that again. I don't expect a 70% or anything like that. He's going to struggle when he throws the ball. I think some, because I think their secondary is decent, but yeah, I mean, I agree. He doesn't have to be great. He just can't turn the ball over. That to me is the big thing that
They can't turn it over on our side.
If we turn the ball over and give them a short field, they're scoring a touchdown. That's just what happens. We've done it. We played really well in the first half of USC, really well against Purdue. Both of those games had muffed punts that helped us. Like, we don't want to turn it over in our territory either. That's what he has to do. And I think he can do that, which I think he will. And I think we're going to run down their throats and win the game because we can run the ball better. I think he will struggle a little bit, but it's okay. Would just like to see more continued jumps. Like he was looking off safeties last week. He was making good reads. I want to see that continue.
So there's a couple things that I think about in this game. One is the depth. Like I think I'd mentioned this before. I don't think any of us would sit here and say that our front seven has been outstanding this season. But the thing about our front seven is you can replace every single starter in that front seven with another player, and there's like zero drop off. I mean, it's basically the same production. In fact, a lot of people would say it's probably better. I mean, we didn't start Hills to start the season. We haven't really played Lane that much. Those guys can come in. You don't really lose anything on the D line. You can put in Tackett. You can put in Allegro. I think everybody here thinks that they're really good and should potentially start, depending on how you want to look at it. I think our edges, you got Daryl Peterson, you got Pius, you got Lowry, and then I don't know if is Witt healthy. Does anybody know what's his deal anymore? Like, I mean,
he got his
I don't
75 snaps in.
Who knows? But Cheeks played well last week, had a sack and a half, right? So 2 lines of front seven guys, right? 2 complete lines for us, not to mention our safety rotations, Austin Brown and Lofi rotating, our corner rotations. Our defense has a ton of depth, a ton of it. What Rutgers wants to do is wear you down. They can't do that against a team with a ton of depth. Like, it's not going to happen because they're not going to get to enough plays. The reason we got worn down against USC, we played 80 plays, right? And by the end of the game, we were getting beat by 6'4", 6'6" receivers getting the ball thrown up to them when we were right on their hit the whole game. I mean, you heard the announcers, you could see it in the film. We were right on them, just right there. But it's just 1 inch more. And I will argue, I'm going to say this, I'm going to make this call right now. That was the last gasp of a dying USC team for this season. That was their last attempt at relevancy for this year. I think they get blown out tomorrow. That team is not built for this. It was obvious after we played them. It was obvious in watching them against Minnesota. It's going to be obvious watching them get ran over by Penn State tomorrow. They're not built for this. I think they're done, right? The last gasp at relevancy was the game versus us. Unfortunately, it was at our expense, but it was what it was. So when I look at this team tomorrow, I think the way this game will go is that we can wear on Rutgers. Rutgers will get some yards in the first half. We go up a score, maybe they match, maybe they get a field goal, maybe they score. We go up another score, right? And then what starts to happen is Rutgers starts to press because they have to, or they feel they have to. And then they make a mistake. And then all we need Braedyn to do is one play action. He can hit one pass, one guy deep. Next thing you know, maybe we're up by 2 scores. Maybe we have 17-7, 21-7, something like that. And the game is over at that point because they're not going to be able to play bully ball against us because our defense is too fast, too athletic. They can't get behind us. They're just not athletic enough to do that. So that's how this game snowballs, right? And if you flip it, let's say we're playing horribly. We still have that depth on defense that we can rely on such that we don't really get ran off the field, right? And this offense, the way it's worked, and I finally started to see this the last 2 weeks, not just Purdue, but also against USC, you could see it. This offense stretches the defense in such a way that if they make one mistake and miss one tackle, you can take it to the house. If they're a second late on a pass to Anthony, if they miss stretch in the open field, that can be a touchdown. So we can score pretty much at any time, right? And that's the stress that Rutgers is under the whole game. Whereas for us, keep the ball in front of us. We played Monungai last year with the same defensive coaching staff, with the players that I think were less athletic at what they're trying to do at the time. We held him to his lowest run total of the entire season, right? So it's really quite simple. Play the run, stop the run with Monungai, right? He'll get some yards, but eventually he's going to get stopped at the line. Eventually we'll get a tackle for loss. They'll get a holding. Something will happen that'll slow them down. You get off the field on the pass, and if we can keep a drive alive, which you don't need Locke to do a lot, you just need him to turn a hand off and then pull it once or twice and find someone just open on a slant route, right? If we can do that, then we can easily run this game.
One of the things I'm going to say real quick on this is simply, I think it's a huge deal in this game, and it's one of the aspects of Wisconsin so far this season that I think is something that people really haven't paid a lot of attention to outside of the Alabama game. We've done a really good job of not giving up big plays. We've made teams really have to grind against us in order to do something. And that's not something that I think Rutgers wants to do, because if they can't gash us for a couple of big runs, it's going to be really difficult for them to sit there and be like, we need to do this 3, 4, 5 yards at a time to be able to piece that together. And that's a big part of the reason why I'm not overly worried about them in this game, is that I just don't – you're not going to have Kaliak Manis out there, especially I think they have a very young wide receiver group, and we have a very seasoned secondary. that I just don't feel like he's a guy that can exploit us through the air if they can't run the ball and get themselves into really good situations. And I just don't. I think Monanga is a pretty good running back. I don't see him gashing us for 20 or 30-yard runs. Like, he's going to probably pop some 10-yarders. But this defense, one of the things that's great about it, they are really fast. So they do a really good job of recovering after they give up the initial, burst of 8 to 10 yards. They just don't let you get that 20, 30 yards, other than Alabama, who literally every team in the country struggles with that.
Yeah,
I've watched way too much Rutgers in the last week, trying to justify why I feel the way I feel. They haven't played a defense as fast as ours yet. Washington's defense is probably the most athletic defense they played. I don't know what I really feel of them. I don't think that they're all the way where they want to be yet. Nebraska's defense is significantly slower than ours. Virginia Tech's defense, I don't know what they were doing when they played them. They did not look, I don't know what they were doing. It looked like I can tell you this. I know why Longo averaged 40 points per game in the ACC watching Virginia Tech's defense. I mean, that was pretty crazy. And then obviously you had Akron and whatever. So this is going to be by far the fastest defense they've played all season, the most athletic defense they've played all season. I don't think that's particularly close. Going back to a comment someone had said before about Locke, not being good, having played Purdue, don't get it fooled.
Which by the way, really quick, was the point of this roundtable, y'all.
That's okay. That's fair.
Ryan,
I didn't even touch on Locke. I didn't realize that.
The actual question. Y'all two are politicians, not even answering the question the moderator puts out there.
I answered the question.
What I like about Locke, I think, is his ability to make the calls at the line, because I think that's going to matter a lot. Like, do we think he's going to have 300-something yards again tomorrow? Probably not. But of getting us in positions to take advantage of what the defense is giving us, like if he can do that consistently, I mean, that's what we need. Because if he's putting us in positions where we're making good plays, then we can keep drives alive. We can get better run looks. We can maybe hit some guys that are in one-on-one matchups that are advantageous matchups for us. Like, those are the kind of things that I want to see. Like, getting us in position, getting us out of bad situations. If we can do that more times than not, I think that's where he really can help our team.
I answered the question initially, Ryan. It's just my follow-ups were not.
Your follow-up went in a different direction.
I kept it very short.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Brandon.
Catching up.
I would say this really, just to pick one thing out of what you said there, Curtis. And by the way, a lot of comments about Curtis is preaching. Curtis is ruthless. I was
on fire and brimstone. I've been on that all week. I don't know what it is about this game.
Dude, I love the passion, man. Love the passion. One thing I would say is I don't know if it's necessarily a compliment saying you could replace any of our starters in the front seven with another guy and not lose much. Like, if I'm a Rutgers fan,
that's why our defense isn't the best defense we ever had. I mean,
I'm saying I could run on that defense then if you're telling me everybody's replaceable. And that's what they are saying. And I think there's truth in that. I think they are going to be able to run on us because, I mean, I agree with you. Our defense is faster. Our defense line's not stouter than Nebraska, though. Like, with their interior defense line, they have a stouter defense line than we do. This is not a defense line I trust to hold up against a pretty good running attack. And if they can run the ball, they're going to say the same thing we're saying, that run the ball to set up the pass. And Calic Manis is not terrible. He does have a higher completion.
Okay, don't even start. I don't want to talk about Calic Manis.
That dude is not a terrible quarterback. Like, he's okay-ish. But
what are his numbers over the last couple of weeks now that he's not playing?
He's completing more passes than Locke.
How did he do
in the last few weeks?
He
was 40%.
Implore you to look back at the stats, dog.
Has Locke ever had a game where he was 40% passing?
Probably.
No, 50, man. On the money.
Yeah.
Calic Manis is not good, but Calic Manis played well against us. We all remember that. Let's not think about that.
We do not have Jim Leonard as a defensive coordinator.
Okay.
You stop that nonsense.
What I will say, I'm actually going to take off. I'm going to go back to my family, but I just want to say this to end, and then I'm going to leave you all fine people. I definitely think this is a win. I feel like we need to focus on what we do well, lean on the part of our team that is the best, our offensive line. Lean on that. Yes, he does need an IPA. Lean on the offensive line, and I think we can do this. We can't make mistakes. As much as I know people want to say this is going to be a 30-point victory, that's fine. I love that opinion. If it happens, I will be all loving life. But we cannot make mistakes in this game because I believe personally that we will get punished if we turn the ball over. We're not going to have a big cushion, in my opinion. So let's keep this clean. Let's get this win. Northwestern, only because it's a road game and it always scares me. That's always going to scare me. If we win the next 2 games, the hype that's going to surround this team when we are in Madison in a few weeks, I'm telling you what, it's going to be epic. Please, Badgers, please, 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 please win this game and win next week to give us that opportunity to be absolutely pumped when we go to Madison. Good night, boys. See you tomorrow.
Hold on, Rajiv, I'm not going to let you go just yet. One more very quick question. Did you give a actual score prediction?
I gave it on our show in the middle of the week. 20-14 is my final score. 20-14 Badgers.
Lock it in. 2014. I love it.
See
Thanks,
you guys.
brother.
Take care.
All right. So that was. Oh, I kicked off Curtis. Hold on. Rajiv, you're still in jail. You can't go. Hold on. Now go.
I was like, man, I switched to widescreen. I don't know how that happened. That was crazy.
There it is. Okay.
Now I'm just in no man's land.
I got you guys. All right, Curtis, I want to flip it on both of you, on all of us, actually. This thing doesn't go quite as well as you think. Outside of the Badgers just playing really poorly, how does Rutgers beat us? How do we lose this game? And outside of we just don't show up, because I think we can lose a game it's not because we just play really, really poorly.
So I think if we lose this game, Rutgers is going to have to play like the game of their life. And I say that because and what I mean by that is like they're executing at a high level. Their guys are getting open on our corners. Like, we're missing tackles of Manungai in the open field, which is something we haven't really done this year. We haven't missed a lot of open field tackles. So we're doing that. They're dialing up, stuff that we haven't seen before, trick plays, reverses, things like that we're just like out of position for, that kind of thing. And I think most importantly, returning the ball over. I mean, a lot of it goes back to us making mistakes, right? I think a lot of Badger fans who are kind of less optimistic about this game, a lot of it to me, just it's because we haven't shown consistency, right? And that's fair. I totally understand that. We haven't really shown consistency. We still haven't had a game this year where we've played 4 quarters straight. I said that last week. Last week was definitely not a 4-quarter game. We played maybe half a quarter in the first half, and then a 1 full quarter in the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter was kind of irrelevant at that point. So I really think the way we lose this game is coming out playing inconsistently in the ways that have hurt us in the past with this team. That's where I think we really would lose this game. So I think from a Rutgers perspective, I mean, I try to go down the list by matchups, right? So we think about the receivers. Can they generate offense from their receivers against our secondary? Right, that's something I think about.
The answer
and I would say no. Right, okay. So then you go to the running back game. All right. Well, our defensive line isn't that great. Okay, cool. So let's say that they're able to run on our defensive front. Right? Are they able to wash down our entire linebackers such that they can get in the open space and break something? And that's where I look at it and I say, has anybody been able to break a run on us yet this year? I mean, Alabama had a couple nice runs for sure. If you go back and watch that film, it's because Milroe froze our linebackers in place. Calicmanis is not going to do that. So then I think to myself, okay, well, what about can our safeties come in and run support? I like Wohler in the box. I like the way Zachman's been playing. If we miss a tackle, can we make up for it? I mean, Lucas, Hallman, Forqueen, they've been pretty good on pursuit. So I think we can mitigate their strength. I think they'll still have that strength, but I don't think it's going to kill us. Right? So that's kind of how I look at this game, trying to evaluate the matchups. I guess kind of going back to it, the way the Rutgers beats us, I think, like I said, I think it really comes down to us just not showing up the way we need to.
Rutgers, you remind me. I mean, Curtis, you remind me of myself in that you and I don't do short-winded.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh,
Justin, before you get going, because I want to kick it to you, I do want to thank everybody in the chat. We got Hugh. Hugh is awesome. We got JB, who's back from his fast. Hope that went well, brother. Mitch, Eli.
I thought he's had to do it for the whole day.
I think the day's over, maybe where he's at.
I don't know how that works.
We got Kedrick in the chat, who's always awesome. Noah Whale, Badger Pat. So one leg up, one lag up. Appreciate all you guys so much. All right. Sorry, Justin.
All right. It's pretty simple for me. Turnovers on our end offensively and inability to stop the run. That's the only way we lose this game. Because I do not believe in the Rutgers passing game. And I just think if they can't run the football, that they're just done. Like they won't cross probably the 50 on us if they have to rely on the passing game. Because they have to have the threat of the run in order for Calicmanis to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't have anybody that threatens you. Like there's no big receiver that they're capable of just throwing it up to. Now they might hit on one big pass, or they might have something that where they hit you for 30 yards. But do I think that they're capable of getting somebody behind you to get like a 50-yard touchdown pass? No, I don't. In fact, they're pretty young at that. So as long as we don't have stupid turnovers on offense, and I think we're really going to lean on the run game. I really honestly believe that is going to be, at least initially until we get our legs under us offensively, is going to be how they're going to do things. It does appear to me that Longo has a lot of trust in Locke in terms of throwing the football. So I think that there's going to be stretches where we see ourselves throwing the football a lot. I don't necessarily buy into the fact that Rutgers can't be had through the air. I just think you need to loosen them up first.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to flip it around because I've been probably a little more pessimistic because it wouldn't be fair for me to have you guys flip your thoughts around a little bit and then not do the same for me. I think that the road to the Badgers winning comfortably is Braedyn. What we saw, what the improvement as we've seen every week continues. Like we've been getting better every week. Rutgers hasn't played a real schedule. We have. Our stats because of that are deflated. Their stats are inflated. I do think we can run the ball in them. And Curtis' point is dead on. If we get up, I think they panic. They can't run if we get up, and then Calic Manis isn't good enough to beat you by himself. That's how it snowballs. Then Calic Manis has to try to beat him beat you by himself, and that's where Rico gets a pick 6, and then it's 28-7, and then it really does snowball, and you just lean on them. And I see that path. I really do. I think Rutgers is a little overvalued because of their schedule, because of preseason hype, and I think we're a little undervalued because of our schedule and who we've had to play. If we played that schedule and they played ours, the records are just
probably 5-0 right now.
Yeah, or 5-0. Yeah, maybe we drop one. Maybe we drop to Washington. I don't know. But we don't have 2 losses, and Rutgers definitely has 2, and they probably look as bad against Bama as we did. And then the perspectives are all changed. So to me,
keep in mind too, there's the other thing I wanted to point out is it's funny because I don't think there's been a single national media person or anybody that's watched the Badgers since maybe the first quarter of the Alabama game, and then they just kind of checked out.
I think people watched USC. I think people watched USC.
I don't think so.
Things are really weird with that Alabama game too. Does it not feel to you guys like we were given no like leeway due to the fact that we lost our starting quarterback in that game? Everyone just looks at it like, oh no, Wisconsin just got blown off the field. It's like,
well, I think a lot of people will say that like they lost their starting quarterback and then they just wiped the rest of the analysis.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's the analysis. They lost it, which is to some degree fair. I mean, that's what happened. But the other thing I think that's important to recognize, and Eiler's mentioned this in Discord, I don't know if we were playing our best players. I said this, I think, after week 2, Ryan, on our show. I don't think we were playing our best players to start the year. I think that's changed, right? I think you're starting to see us start to play the guys that are giving us the best chances to win. The rest of media, I was listening to another preview of this game. Everybody's got the same preview. They think Wisconsin's not what Wisconsin used to be. True. Rutgers is better than they used to be. True. They have an identity that everybody can identify. They want to run the ball. Fair. And then it's like, well, then Wisconsin's just not that. So 24-17. Literally every analysis, verbatim, that's exactly what it was.
24-17.
Literally every analysis, which tells me no one's actually watched Wisconsin. Probably no one's really watched Rutgers because, like, who watches Rutgers? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I got to keep it real. So then it's like, I think one of the things that we have going for us is that we're starting to play guys that I think are difference makers that probably should have been starting out the gate. And I think that that's going to help us in this game and moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
I'm not going to lie, though. Part of what's bothering me with this is that there is, in my opinion, a way that this game turns into a Wisconsin blowout. And that's because I do think we can throw the football to an extent. Like it's going to take the right situations for it to come about. But if Wisconsin is able to run the football and Locke gets an opportunity to work with them having to kind of come downhill, I actually do think that he can exploit them and we can break some big pass plays on them. Because
if our guys are open, Locke can find them.
When I talked about this and I said it on ours and somebody kind of pushed back on me where I said that I think that Locke is significantly better in some ways than Caliac Manis. One of the ways I think he's significantly better is I think mentally he's an extremely gifted quarterback. I just think that sometimes physically he's not capable of exploiting his mental abilities. If you put him against a team like Rutgers that isn't capable of putting him into a kind of a rough spot with the lack of athletes that they have, this is a game that's kind of tailor-made for him. Like there's not the type of defensive X factors out there that can make things hard for him. And I think that you would agree that Wisconsin is probably athletically better at the wide receiver position than Rutgers probably is on the defensive back end. Like there's guys capable of being able to get open against this defense.
We should be able to get open. Rutgers has some veteran DBs. They're okay back there.
They do. I don't think we're going to break 50-yard touchdowns, but I do think we're capable of making plays.
I do think we need to continue seeing growth from the receiver room. But I agree. So I agree with your first point completely, though. Locke is a way better pure quarterback than Calic Madness. Like he'll read the field. He'll come off his first read, come to his second read. He can manipulate the defense. He understands what he's seeing. No question there. Like 100%. Calic Madness probably has a little bit better physical tools, to be honest. He's a little bigger, has a decent arm, but Locke's the better quarterback, 100%. I just don't know enough better where if we don't run the ball consistently or if we don't lean on the run, if Locke is the guy that wins you the game. And I'm not sure if he's there yet. So we got to be able to run the ball, which we should be able to. But again, that's the same thing they're saying on their end, which is where I keep coming back to. I think these teams are more similar than they're dissimilar. Wisconsin has a little more speed, higher end talent. I like our quarterback more, but we're also going on the road. It's not. I just don't know, man. I just can't quite.
Well, Northwestern is showing that you can beat a team that people think are better than them, 37-10 on the road right now.
Well, okay, so one thing I will say about the road, Ryan, though, this is not a Wisconsin team that I think can come into this that will come into this game thinking that they can just walk out on the field. They've gone through too much. They've gone through.
Yeah, we better. I mean, I hope that's the case.
And there's too many young guys that are playing for the first time that are still just being excited to be playing for that to happen. That's normally veteran teams that are used to being able to just kind of out talent. And so Wisconsin's not at that place.
I don't listen. Piscataway is also not like an intimidating place. I'm just saying, like for young players, sometimes just being out of your comfort zone, having to travel in a different spot, like those things do impact it somewhat. There's a reason you get 3 points roughly at home if you're Vegas because it does make a small difference. But I don't know. You guys are swaying me.
Well, I mean, think about it like this: we went out to USC and we got up 21-10 in the first half against an objectively better team, at least athletically and offensively, than Rutgers is in USC. And I think if we were to replicate that this week, I don't think Rutgers comes back.
Oh, they're not getting off the
and I don't think we let them come back because I think we made that mistake and
they don't have the players to do it. There's no 6'4" wide receiver they can lean on third and long.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, like, that's where for me, it's like, one, we're undefeated in Piscataway, and I think our average margin of victory there is like 50 points. So that's that. But then,
some of those were with slightly better players in certain spots too.
Well, and slightly worse players on the other side of the field. But all I'm saying is, I look at this. It's an away game, but we've come out hot in away games before, especially even under Fickle. We've come out hot in away games. Have we been able to maintain it the whole game? No, and I think that's where you have to look at, well, what can Rutgers do to threaten us if we come out hot and we start to falter? And that's where it's like they can't replicate what USC did to beat us, which was get to third and long and chuck it up in the air to a 6'4", 6'6" receiver that's going to be playing on Sundays, and then just have him make an awesome play. They can't do what Bama did, which is have a running quarterback completely freeze the entire defense, then stop his run halfway through and float it over the top to a wide receiver who's running a 4.140 and is behind everybody. Like, they can't do that. So that's why I look at it and say it's like away game is tough, but if you're going to play away, I'd rather play a team like this that can't just get hot and get the stadium involved and start to really change momentum. That's what happened with USC.
Well, but I would say you don't have to be as good as Bama or USC to beat this team either, right? Like, I know they can't replicate those things.
We have to be focused for sure.
Can they replicate some of what Western Michigan did to be ahead of us in the third quarter? Like, maybe, right? This is still a team that's.
So I'll be honest. I don't think this team. Yeah.
First week though.
No, I mean, when you watch the film of the Western Michigan, we left at least 21 points on the board in the first half.
How often do we say that? We said that against USC too, where we left points on the board.
We did. We did, and what I'll say is last week, the first week, we exploited them.
Yeah, and even the first half of Purdue, though, we left points on the board. Like, this could just continue my overall point.
We dropped 21 in the first half, though.
And then we dropped 21 in a quarter. And so it's like you're starting to see the things check. So I guess
one of those every week.
Yeah, it's
Final
true.
thought is this is going to be my.
Bertrand's
I've
is a
been
wizard.
talking too much, but this is going to be kind of my final thought on that because I've been talking way too much tonight.
No,
It's,
you're good, man.
I think we've left a lot on the field. Each week we've left less on the field, right? And so that's where it's like, can we continue that trend? If we can continue that trend, then absolutely, I think we're crushing this team. If we can't, that's where I think you regress. That's where I think you see us in the rock fight. That's where I think Rutgers has all the opportunities to win everything. Ryan, you talked about the Rutgers people talked about, the national media people talked about. That's where I think all of that comes into play, right? If we're not able to continue to improve, which we've continued to improve each week, in my opinion, I think we've gotten better. If that trend doesn't continue, that's where we run into problems.
Adjusting it close to the mic. I thought there was about to be a moment right there.
I was scratching my ankle.
Like, I thought you were coming in for something emphatic. All right, let's wrap up here because we've done about an hour. We'll do final score prediction. I do want to throw this comment out that we got, though. I haven't even verified this yet. This is from Steve K. He said, did you see the Badgers 25 class, according to Rivals, is 16th in the country? Is that?
No.
I'd have to.
I mean, Rivals has been high on us.
Does that mean Davenport actually got a decent rating?
He must have. I mean, listen, I can check that right now, but we know Clayton just got the bump to 4 stars. Yeah. Guys, thoughts on really quick on the 25 class, Clayton getting the bump up. This would be the second class in a row with this Max and Pat, Luke Fickle group, basically top 20-ish type class.
We've talked about some of this before, but there are some of these situations where it just makes me mad that a guy even got a certain evaluation to begin with. And I don't know if things have been updated, but Davenport's still not. Like, Davenport never should have been a 5.5. It's absolutely ridiculous based off of even just physical measurables, him coming in, that he is a 5.5.
Let me share the screen here. So there's your Rivals rankings. Wisconsin, 16. I don't see Minnesota in there anywhere.
Keep going.
Just keep.
Rutgers has a really good class next year. I remember one guy said
there you go.
There
they made it in a shade under 50.
You really got to scroll down a ways for that one. Look,
they have a ton of commits too.
With this number 16 class, according to Rivals right now. Sorry, Justin. I cut one of you off. I apologize.
I need to see what the updates are for the actual rankings. Like, I can live with a 5.7 on Davenport, but a 5.5 just it's infuriating to me, to anyone that's actually watched his film.
I'm curious as to what we look like when they reevaluate 247. I like Rivals. Rivals is nice to us, so I appreciate them. But I think 247 is the one that everybody tends to just go off of. So, like, it's always interesting to see what they say and what they think about our players. I definitely thought we were supremely underrated, and I felt really good about this 25 class. There's parts of it that I feel like I like more than our last class, and then obviously there's parts of this class that I love too. So, I think that, quite honestly, if we weren't to get a bump, I don't think it would have changed my opinion of the class, because I thought this class was severely underrated, and sometimes people got chips on their shoulder because of that. So, I'm all for it.
Well, and sometimes, like, some of those bumps aren't always super helpful, right? Like, Clayton gets bumped to 4. Other schools might take a little more interest to, so it is what it is.
Well, anyone who's watched his film.
Well, yeah. On that,
who does that anymore, Justin? Come on, that's too much work. Who wants to watch film?
All right, let's wrap it around final score prediction and maybe one X factor for the game. We'll make it fun. Justin, let's start with you on this one. We'll go counterclockwise.
Yeah, I'll stick with what I said all along, which was 24-10. I just don't. I don't believe in Rutgers offense. I think if we continue the growth pattern what we've had on defense, I think that we actually hold them to a reasonable rush number in this game, and I just don't believe Kaliak-Manis can really challenge us. They might get to 13, but I think I just don't see multiple touchdowns on the board for them with that offense.
What you got, Curtis? Final score prediction.
Yeah, I'm revising mine because I'm watching Northwestern beat Maryland 37-10.
Drop 100.
So I'm what? No, I'm gonna say 38-17. I said that in the Discord. Someone said that Rutgers was rated way ahead of us in some college poll, so I just decided to up my score a little bit. But no, I think here's what I think. I think this game starts off. It's a slower first quarter. I think we both probably put some points on the board. I think we get some good looks that go our way. I think we're able to stop them maybe once or twice, and I think it snowballs on. And I think once it snowballs, that's where I think Locke can do a lot of damage, because that dude can be ruthless. I think he can get the offense in right spots, and if we have anybody open, he'll find them. That's the one thing he's done well. So I think he's broken the 50% allegations. So let's see if he can break the passes batted down allegations. If he can do those two things a couple weeks in a row, I think he can be a really, really tough quarterback to beat if he's locked in and we're getting things rolling. So that's kind of my last thought.
It sounds like the story of Pinocchio, man. He's a real quarterback now. Look, he can complete over 50% passes. No,
Don't
I'm
smoke
like
the cigars.
I'm like 20 to 17-ish, 20 to 23-20. 2017, Wisconsin. Wisconsin wins. I just think it's a game where they are going to run the ball. We're going to run the ball too. That means less possessions. I don't think there's going to be a ton of scoring. Justin, I think your 20 to 14 is under the 40 as well. I think this game hits under the 40 because both teams run the ball.
Mine's 24 to 10.
Oh,
But still under.
That's under 40. Yeah.
I flipped the numbers around,
we're
but
not getting to 40. I don't
either
think.
way, we're both.
If
under
the game
40.
spirals that much, it's going to be a blowout type game for one of the teams. But I would say it's probably us.
I think if it's a shootout, we win. Like I think the shootout favors
a higher scoring game favors us a lot.
There's no way they can be consistent enough offensively to get to 30 plus points. I don't think.
Will Hannah has 24-19. That's kind of right where I'm at. I'm at 2017. I just think it's going to be a grind out game. But we all got wins. Rajiva has a win as well. So hopefully the Badgers pull that out. We'll definitely be here on the post game as always, doing the therapy session. Hopefully it's a good one. Justin, Curtis, y'all, thank you so much. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much. On Wisconsin, beat Rutgers.